Okay, we are now live.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Fantastic. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first Airport Commission meeting of the year. And Brian, we can start off with a roll call.
Sure, Commissioner Schwartz. Oh, you have your mute on.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Nye? Commissioner Randall?
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioner Young?
Here.
And Chair Lorman.
Here. All right. Well, thank you. We have quorum. Do we have the notice of meeting posted
Yes.
in the city? And all right. Fantastic. Thank you very much for the posting. All right, well, we'll start off the meeting with public comments, so limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And I don't think we've received anything in writing. So I don't have anything there. And do we have anybody present tonight that would like to speak?
Not received any email requests to speak at public comment, and as of this moment, I don't see anybody with the virtual hand raised, but we can put out a call. If anybody on the call wants to speak, please raise your virtual hand or take yourself off of mute and let us know.
Okay. No public comment. We'll move on. Approval of the minutes. I reviewed the minutes. Don't have any comments or updates. Commissioners, do you have any comments regarding the minutes as they've been submitted by the city? I see shaking heads. Okay.
Nope.
I'll accept the minutes then as they have been submitted. Great. Well, thanks. The only report I have is just rounding out the year. The local Experimental Aircraft Association chapter reported that I believe they're up to 11 scholars. So these are local students that are becoming future aviators. Each one has received a scholarship in the neighborhood of about $11,000 a piece. And just to point out that that work is greatly appreciated because it's all through the local volunteers here operating locally, which comes out to be about 2.5 million Young Eagle flights nationally. So it's a wonderful effort, and all that time and effort everybody has put in results in the scholarship fund coming right back to local, basically high schoolers. So that's all I had. We can move on to the manager's report.
Okay. Can everyone hear me all right?
Sounds good.
Okay. Very good. We've got 2 months. Oops. And I managed to, well, anyway, 2 month reports here. October 29th through November 30th, we had only 3 noise complaints. 2 individuals made those 3 noise complaints or low-flying aircraft reports. None of the reporters wished to be responded to, and no violations or FAA safety of regulations were apparent in the reports. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field. The runway markings were repainted after the crack seal. That happened, of course, in November. The EA Chapter 93 Visual Meteorological Conditions Club met at Maury Conference Room November 14th. Middleton Garden Club, which has their monthly meetings here, at November 25th. And then I was an online presenter for a safety seminar, my second one on systems, and over 800 people attended online. We had nothing really planned for December. And just to note that 2025 will mark the 100th anniversary of Howard Maury starting a flight school in the Madison area. That was in Monona. The January report were basically from November 30th to December 27th. Sorry about the typo there. We had a total of 6 noise or low flying aircraft reports. 5 of these 6 reports were from the same individual. None of the report, well, yeah, at that point, none of the reporters wished a response. No violations of FAA regulations were apparent in the report. I'll have an addendum on that at the end. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field. Okay, snow removal has started. I believe we've had 2 small events where we've had to plow, and everything's working fine with the equipment. Again, Chapter 93 VMC Club is happened in December 5th. Kids Aviation Club met December 14th in the Maury Conference Room. And Capital Flight hosted an FAA safety seminar December 16th, in which I attended. Jörg Grossenbacher was the presenter there. That's the FAA safety rep for the area. VMC is happening at 7 o'clock tonight here at Maury Conference Room. And again, mentioning of the 100th anniversary this year. One thing that I have noted recently is I've had 2 phone calls from individuals, one from Sauk Prairie and one from quite a bit further south in the Black Hawk area, talking about aviation, the flight school, and various concerns along those lines, which I spoke with them at length. And I'm not really sure to what extent the communication actually occurred. I know there was a letter to the editor published at the Sauk Prairie equivalent of the Middleton Times-Tribune, and I believe that had, well, I haven't read it, so I won't make a comment on it. Also, lately, we've had people a person wants a response to be responded to directly and via email. My job, as I see it, as airport manager, is simply to respond that yes, your report has been recorded and will be reported. If there's anything that I can do immediately about it, I certainly can, especially if someone's not following the noise abatement procedures regularly. But I will not get into an online debate over with people over this. I will direct them to the airport commission to bring their concerns here. That wraps up the airport commission, or the manager's report.
Okay. Well, I guess if whatever inquiries were from the entities outside of Middleton, nothing landed in my inbox, or nor Brian's that I know of. So I guess there's really no action for us there, or discussion, I should say, or future discussion. And if something does arise out of that, I guess put it on our radar and we'll pick it up. Fair enough. Alrighty. Congratulations on 100 years. That's unbelievable. I think. And the airplane that was being used back then was considered pretty modern. So. Okay. Well, we'll move on to discussion item number 1 then. And basically, we're going to review consideration and potential action on its Chapter 2.18 Airport Commission Ordinance, including membership, background, and expertise. As Brian highlighted there in red, I requested a commission review of this ordinance regarding whether to recommend to license an ordinance and the Common Council to include an unspecified number of commission members to have certain backgrounds or expertise reflected in their appointment to the Airport Commission. I also noted, that other committees, such as the Conservancy and Lands Committee, have requirements that a member shall pose expertise in engineering or land conservation, for an example. So really just to kind of refresh the position on this and why this was brought here. It was also brought up as a discussion point by one of our council members who served on the airport commission also at one time, raising the same question. Is this something we want to consider and if we do, how do we go about it? So I really leave it up to you, up to the commission. Do we want to go down this road now that we, have put it out here as a formal discussion item? How do we want to build language around that? There's a potential, background. And it's really up to us. So I'd like to hear from the commission on this. So Brian has some direction and some things to work on. Don't feel under any pressure tonight, that just because this is here, this has to be settled tonight. We certainly can just give Brian something to work on, and we can go back and forth on this. This is not a time sensitive type of thing. Matter of fact, I think the more thought we put into it, when it eventually makes its way to license and ordinance into the Common Council, it'll actually be easier for them. I don't see any hands up. Don't make me do this. Okay. Tara, please.
Yeah, I don't have specifics, and I know we're early in the game of this conversation, but in my observation of just being on airport commission meetings in the past, and I've just really seen the benefit of having people with a variety of aviation related or aviation business background. My understanding is, as a airport commissioner and the airport commission, we're advisory. And I feel it's important, if you're going to be giving advice, that you have something that you're bringing to the table, either for or against whatever whatever is on the agenda, whatever being proposed to. So I see a lot of value in having people with background. I don't have specifics like how many of the citizen members, but I really feel that that's an important piece. If anything, I lean towards a majority of the 5. That's just a thought I'm throwing out on the table. Like 3 out of 5 at least have experience. So at least the majority of people that are speaking are bringing something that makes it really appropriate to advise the Common Council in the city of Middleton on any direction that the airport is looking at taking. That's my comment.
Great. Appreciate that. Just making some notes. Yeah. So in summary, non-specific skill sets or history to aviation, but maybe an aviation background exposure, and leaning towards 5 of the commission members, if possible. Or did you say 3, if possible?
I would say a minimum of 3. But I would actually be open to all 5 having a variety of different backgrounds to be in that kind of a qualified advisory capacity. And reason being that I feel that way about that is that for people that don't have the background, they're more than welcome to present to the commission their concerns, pros or cons. They're always able to come to us as commissioners or to come to the city and bring up how they feel. And then, I've been listening to citizens as well as people that are citizens that don't have any aviation background. And then I want to be able to represent that when I come to the board. So I don't see it as a liability to have all 5 be people that have some kind of aviation commitment. Let's put it that way.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your input. And I see Jack, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I 100% agree with what Kara had shared. I'm just curious though, the definition of involvement in that and who adjudicates whether you, I guess, who makes that decision? How's that, whether you have the background or not?
Great question. I think that would then be something we as a commission and the way we draft the ordinance language would in part help define. I suspect Commissioner Schwartz has some excellent thoughts and ideas on how that would come about. So please go ahead.
Well, my only comment at this time is, first of all, I agree with the concept, but I also agree with what Jack is saying. And the one thing I would caution is, from my perspective and background, the word expertise is a loaded word. And so I saw that in some of the proposals. I would stay away from that word, and I would otherwise define what sort of background or involvement persons have that would qualify them. But I would stay away from the word expertise, just because it's very much of a loaded word in terms of what qualifies as an expert.
Right. I believe in the world of aviation, a pilot that has about 10,000 hours is considered to have expert knowledge. And under that is still learning. So, yep, excellent point. Anybody else have some thoughts? Lindsay, Brian.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are in alignment with what's been said so far. I think it's important to have an advisory council that has the necessary background to actually provide worthwhile advice. But I also want to make sure that we're not backing ourselves into a corner of excluding qualified candidates based on how we define that expertise, to the point just made. I'm sure we can find an appropriate way to do that with careful wording and however we want to put that onto paper.
Yes, exactly. Brian, you're up. Brian Hamilton. You're muted though.
Not unmuting. There we go. Sorry. No, I would just concur with everything, especially what Jack said about the terminology of expertise. I mean, I would definitely not say I'm an expert. I'm not a pilot, although I do, have a background in aviation and some work with an FBO. So, just you want to make it, I think, just know enough to be dangerous, I guess, not to be, so, just so that citizens can get their voice heard too. You don't have to be a pilot, because I am not. But I do agree with what Cara said about, possibly 3 of the 5 seats being pilots, or however you want to define that.
Mm-hmm. Great. I really appreciate that. Scribbling some notes here. And Rich, as our in-house expert, you have some thoughts?
Okay, well, I got over 20,000 hours of flight time. I don't think that makes me a double expert, though. I do know an awful lot about this airport, having been here for, what did I do the math? Something like 54 years. Anyway, this is a very specialized field of knowledge. Your general person on the street doesn't really have a background in aviation. They don't understand. Don't understand that the FAA is the regulatory body. And bringing someone on the commission and then having to try to educate them is difficult. It's far better to have in this role to advise the city people that have a background. They won't know everything, but at least they'll start with a level of knowledge, which is very useful. And then the advice that is given in those things that are considered are consistent with what can actually happen with the FAA, as well as what is required of the city through grant assurances and the rest. So having people that have that knowledge, having seen
Sure. Well, no, that's great. So I'll throw some ideas out there. You know, again, we're working from a blank slate, right? So, you know, do we want to say, for example, there has to be at least one person. Could be one person on the commission. It could even be that person may have to be a local pilot or actually have an aviation stake, you know, from that standpoint. And then 2 other people, 3 other people with background. I mean, so we can do it any way you want. I certainly like the idea of background because you do not have to be a pilot, and that's a fact. Because you know, it's like any other profession. When you go into a hospital, everybody else there is supporting everybody else who's there to carry out a mission of taking care of people. And so everybody brings something to the table at one level. And if you had a commission made up of people who are all familiar with ground-based aviation operation and no pilots in it, you still have people who understand the language or are at least willing to put time and effort into exploring it more. Now, putting on my hat as an alder, I can pretty much assure this body that we must always leave a position or positions open from anybody in the community, you know, to be on it. And I think that's also a fair thing to do. Because then we will get perspective from them and how they see things. And when I say community, like in the case of this commission, we have 2 members on it that are from the town of Middleton. So it can be a challenge for a city to find enough people to serve on a committee and commission. Now, we know that's not the case with the airport because everybody wants to be part of this and contribute. But I don't want us to close the door on that either. And I think that's worked out okay for us. O'Brien, what do you think?
Back at me, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we throwing enough at you? Do you have something you can
I think I have
about?
I have sufficient direction to go back with the city attorney and take a look at some other wording and bring that back at a future time for discussion.
Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure we're not and I absolutely would like to hear your thoughts on it. You know, as city staff from where you sit, I think it's important for the this body to kind of see things from where you sit too.
Yeah, I mean,
if you have some thoughts.
The sentiment is well taken that you know, similar to some of the other committees that the city has where we do prescribe some desired backgrounds. I think that makes sense in this case. What the right number is, I think, is up for discussion amongst this body and ultimately the city council. But I think it's you know, it's a good question to pose, and I'll work with the city attorney to see, you know, what some possible language might be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jack.
Yeah, sorry guys, just forgive me, but you know, we get 2 candidates for this commission or any commission, and both have relevant experience. One has experience in in field A and the other has experience in field B. Who makes the decision?
Ah, well,
So ultimately, it's the mayor makes the appointment and the city council does the confirmation of the appointment.
And is this policy guidance or is this policy something that they have to follow?
this is the way the city operates
Yeah.
for all committees and commissions.
Yep. So that we would take nominations, take applications, whomever is the mayor at the time that the applications are received would review them. They put forth their slate of individuals for appointment, and the common council reviews them and determines whether or not to, make that appointment.
Yeah, I mean, it's just diving into the city, kind of city politics 101 here. The mayor may not be a voting member unless we have a tie on something, but the mayor is the person who reviews all the applications for all committees and commissions and makes that recommendation. So as I've learned in my short time here, it does set the tone for a lot of the things that the city deliberates on in all of our committees and commissions. And I would say, some of the reason this ordinance discussion is in front of us is in the time I've been, keeping track of this and engaged with it. My goal is to kind of reduce some of the volatility and ups and downs and peaks and valleys that could be thrown into a commission. I think, a commission is doing its work at its best when the people have had a chance to stick around a while, have had a chance to learn the subject matter, have had a chance to engage with the city and understand a little bit, what the climate of the city is. So that is one of the reasons this is in front of us, from my perspective. Okay, well, there's no other action required on us. This is just thank you, Brian, and we'll move on. I'll go in one more time. Does anybody have any final words for Brian? Dave, please go ahead.
Sure. Just in listening to the discussion, just throwing something out there, some people were giving specific numbers of, should it be 1 member? Should it be 3 members? Should it be 5 members? I would throw out another suggestion, and that is that whatever the criteria of knowledge or background in aviation be a significant factor in consideration, but not necessarily the factor that ties it to a specific number of members. Simply a major consideration being that background or experience. Again, just to add that thought to the other thoughts that have been thrown out there.
Yes, thank you very much. I think Brian knows how to wordsmith that in. Okay. Let me just get back on my page here. Okay, moving on to item number 2, review, discussion, and potential action on updates to the unleaded fuel FAQ on our website. I brought this item up tonight because I think we're in a place where it seems like a month doesn't go by where the world of piston-powered aviation is being exposed to new information and new findings that certainly seem to be affecting the way the manufacturers are responding to the development of unleaded fuel. There are now some contradictions from Lycoming. When I say contradictions, we have an STC that says you can do this, but now we have the manufacturer. And for those listening in, an STC is a supplemental type certification. And we have a manufacturer, say Lycoming or Cirrus, that says, even though the STC is saying this fuel is approved for this whole swath of airplanes, we're saying no. Lycoming is saying from a warranty perspective, you can't put this fuel through our motors. It will invalidate the warranty. Given the price of a motor, that would be of great concern. Cirrus is saying no at this time. It used to be yes, and now they're saying no. You can't put the UL 100 in your tanks because we have some concerns over material compatibility and its effect on the seals. And we're also seeing some interesting. It was an A&P who was awarded a recognition of the year by the FAA. This person discovered why an airplane had an engine system malfunction in the fuel flow. They found that one of the other unleaded fuels, UL 94, apparently was a development of some metal parts that were made of cadmium were experiencing some corrosion. Now, all that said, and the things I just said, are simply information that I've gathered from reading about this and staying current. And I think we have to be careful that the city of Middleton and myself, and I think any of us here, are not in any position to tell the aviation industry or the pilots what they can and cannot do. And that's why an STC exists. The pilot could take it on themselves and go talk to an A&P and decide whether they want to use a fuel or not. So, and then of course, one other thing, in the past week, the city has, shall we say, received renewed emphasis from our neighbors to take a serious look at, what again are our short-term, call it midterm options in getting an unleaded fuel solution beyond obviously what our current option is at the airport. So is the language on our FAQ representative of the current situation that we're dealing with? Is it fine? Do we leave it alone? And when people come to the Common Council, when people come to city staff and say, I want answers, I want to know why you are or aren't doing things, is there enough information there to help them? Or is there more we can contribute? And that would be my question to you tonight at that. So I open it up. Or comments, or inputs, thoughts, and ideas. Dave, go ahead.
Sure. My only comment is that we recently added an introductory paragraph that addressed some of the uncertainties that still remain that are out of our control. It might be appropriate to add to that, and those dealt with the industry itself, availability, and FAA's position on it. And it might be appropriate to add to that the engine manufacturers' input being a necessary component before individual owners can feel safe to convert to some other type of fuel.
Mhm. Yep, thank you. Anybody else have some thoughts or ideas on that? Comments? Okay, Brian Hamilton. Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Yep.
I was just thinking about, your examples that you mentioned in the front. And so I'm looking at the very first, or not the very first, but one of the questions says, is unleaded 94 UL compatible with all aircraft engines? And it's sort of saying, it reminds me of my truck. I can take down to the E85 ethanol fuel if I want. Do I want to put that in there? No, because it corrodes the engine faster, it wears it out faster, it burns hotter. And likewise with an aircraft engine, it might be compatible with, let's say, like the Lycoming, but they're finding new evidence. So maybe just do we want to change just that word or something that, just because it's compatible doesn't mean it's something that, like you said, the pilot's going to want to put in his aircraft. So just a thought.
Okay, great. Kara. Oh, you're muted.
Wrong page here. Yeah, as we know in the aviation industry, everything with the FAA goes at a snail's pace. It's a large organization, and obviously the development of unleaded fuel has taken some time. I know the last question that you're talking about what the aviation industry and the FAA is doing to develop it, but I just wonder if there's a way we could create a question that would identify that like really nothing happens quickly. And as much as we may have a commitment to our environment, as much as we have an intention that this is where we want to go, obviously we're dealing with engines that have technology that are decades old, and the majority of the engines out there fall in that category. So I don't know, something about the time component. And so what can people reasonably expect when you have a commitment to do this? Like there's a lot of factors which are expressed in some of these questions, but something about just the time of it. That's all I was thinking.
Yeah. Excellent. Yep. Appreciate that. So I guess what I would add, from where I sit, and people have come to me, right, and asked me questions locally, how they'll say to me, how is Middleton going to do this? How is the airport going to do this, right? And it's just, we're limited, right? We have one tank, 10,000 gallon tank, and you can't mix the fuels. And the general public doesn't quite understand that because it's complicated. You can't mix the fuels. And so just given all these complexities, how do we help the city answer these questions? How do we help the city respond to that? As a body, we already discussed the option of putting in another tank at the airport. And we had the support of the airport commission and the city and the common council at that time to simply not pursue it because it was probably now factoring in inflation, we're probably looking at close to a $400,000 project. So if you put another fuel tank in out at the airport, and then comes 2030 to find that, well, now we have an airport with 3 fuel tanks, and we're back to where we are now, where there's only 2 viable fuels on the market, Jet A for jet airplanes and a common fuel for piston airplanes. So I'm thinking, I don't know how you put all that in an FAQ. or if you even attempt to it. Anybody else have some thoughts? Rich, what do you think technically? Are we being sort of accurate? The issues with butyl rubber versus Vital or whatever it is, and the seal expansion and cadmium corrosions and wet tank leakings, and oh my gosh.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when we switched from the 100 octane with the full lead to the low lead.
Oh,
and
okay.
there were teething problems. There were floats and carburetors that were sinking, being eaten by the new formula. The variety it ate seals, it ate rubber gaskets, various other things, old legacy parts. I'm assuming that hopefully we're going to be a little bit ahead of that, but no matter what fuel turns out, there's going to be some unexpected consequences because of the formulations. That said, it's a moving target. We would probably, as you've advised, have to update the Q&A on a almost daily basis, certainly on a weekly basis, to add what the next new link, the new article, the new that or this will be there. I think we're doing a very nice job with it. It's certainly useful. On the other hand, those who have an agenda who will use a partial fact or factoid or something that sounds great without going into the details are always going to have something there. So it's the general public wants a simple answer, and the real world is no, there aren't any simple answers. It's very complicated. So
and maybe
short of updating it,
maybe that's Brian. That's the kind of language we need to put a statement we need to put out there is that there are technical limitations and technical implications of the adoption of the fuel that we are not in a position or we're capable of really taking on. And that's why we offer what we can offer right now. We can't really go too much further. And I think you hit the nail on the head on that one, Rich. Exactly. Jack.
I guess to Rich's point, I propose this is a standing item on our meetings, and it's incumbent upon the commissioners to review these before each meeting and come back with feedback. It responds to the current market environment, and we preface the FAQ with that fact. The commission meets on a regular basis. We review this at every meeting. And these responses are, up to date.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Cara, go ahead. Oh, you gotta hit that mute button. Brian's gonna have to give me control of that mute button. If
I need to learn how to use my own keyboard. I really agree with Rich's point, and I know this is kind of more nitpicking. I'm going back to the word. I think it's Brian Hamilton that might have brought that up, or I'm sorry, I can't remember who brought it about the compatible. It really is about usability. Usability and consequences. I know this is maybe getting into the weeds a little bit, but the fact is, right now, it isn't really usable across the majority of the aircraft, whether we want it to be or not. And I like Jack's point about staying up to date on this, because maybe there is something that comes out and that we can modify a question based on a new development. But I really do feel that there's a lack of education and maybe even a due diligence in the general public. They're out of a commitment to see a shift, not really recognizing the water they're swimming in, about how this moves. Back to my time comment earlier. So I think a lot of the suggestions that everybody's made can make this more current and useful. And hopefully for people who are committed to really understanding it, they'll do the work. But people who are not interested in really being part of the solution, more about the problem, I don't know that we can answer this to those voices. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and you're all hitting the nail on the head, because it is frustrating to try to solve something that we don't have an answer for. Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm also looking at the FAQs, and I think to the point that was brought up earlier around the compatible, if wording around like manufacturer requirements and because compatible does not mean optimal, right? And so if something under that question could be altered, is it compatible with all aircraft engines? Because that letter seemed to be under the impression that it was not just 70%, but 100%. So,
That's right. Yeah.
again, I know that there's some there. But if there was maybe some more wording around there around,
Mhm.
yes, it's designed to be compatible, but there is still ongoing conversations with manufacturers whether that would void warranties on aircraft and their parts, and
There you go. Yeah, excellent.
just to hopefully provide more context for folks who are curious but don't understand why it being compatible isn't enough. Having more of that context there could be helpful, I think.
Yeah, thank you. That's excellent. We'll let Brian catch up with his typing. Oh, see, boy, he's good. Brian Hamilton, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just looking at the web. Whoops. And to Kara's point earlier, it does make a mention in the disclaimer about a timeline. But perhaps some of this discussion we're having can be added to that disclaimer as well. And then another question, is it possible, since you're pretty up to date on a lot of the most current information, is there one website, one link that would it be out of the question to post a hot link on this FAQ page so someone can get, like, if they really wanted to find it, the latest update on the unleaded fuel? Is that out of the realm of possibility? So
Yeah, it just would be that Eagle initiative. I think, I mean, there are entities out there that we have to be careful of. So, for example, do we want to direct people to General Aviation Modification Incorporated? Okay, the leader right now in 100 UL development. Well, no. Do we want to direct them to Swift? Now, an up and coming contender, right? And each one of these developers have sort of pursued parallel but different paths in their process. So General Aviation Modification was in on this very early, right? And they patent whatever they patent their product. So clearly they saw something pretty viable very early on, right? And started a route of testing and then went down the STC route, but yet they refused to participate in the route of ASTM certification, which if you look at fuels out there, they all have an ASTM stamp on it. And this is where we don't want to get caught, in the middle of industry, well, in industry doing what industry does, agree, disagree, fight, litigate, do all kinds of things. We just can't be in the middle of that. So, to your point, we're expressing the technical challenges and frustrations we face as a city.
Right.
You know, I think of it, you know, I try to put, you know, hat on as a person sitting on the Common Council or something like that, where it's like someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, what's the deal? How come we're not, how come we're not there when someone else says we can be there?" I say, well, because it's complicated, and here's why it's complicated, and go read this information. And if you're not satisfied with that information, then you bring that back to the city and we'll work with you. Ultimately, you know, through process by the city, anything can work its way up to the Common Council for a decision to instruct the city entity to do something. So I want to make sure we are ahead of that curve and we are providing as much information. So yeah, fantastic. Let's see, any other hands? Nope. Dave, Rich, Cara, Lindsay. All right. Brian Gatto. What do you think?
So a lot of good information here. So I'll kind of go back and see what else we can put together. That might clarify some of these things you've raised tonight. And to Commissioner Young's suggestion, we'll have this as a kind of standing agenda topic for us to check in whenever the commission meets on if there's new information or updates or things that need to be changed based upon new information that's been received.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's an excellent idea. Thank you very much. And you're okay working with this, for example, copying Rich and myself, like here's some language, you know, what do you guys think? Like, you know, what do we all think? And if any the commission members have additional thoughts or language or suggestions, you can email those directly to Brian without copying any members of the body, or you can email it to me without copying any members of the body. And then I can always forward that to Brian. So,
And then what I'll do is I'll put together, red lines of any changes that come in and bring them back to this body for you to review and make sure that you're comfortable with it before, it gets implemented.
yeah, yeah. And as keeping it as a standing item, it's good. Then we can just even keep bringing the drafts back and say, hey, how's this look? And then we're done. And Brian can just get it posted at the next meet to the website. So, and if we, don't have a commission meeting for lack of agenda items, that's fine. I think as a body, we're comfortable with Brian. Are we comfortable? Let me ask this question. Are you as a commission comfortable with Brian, drafting something up and then, sending it to Rich and myself, to review for, we'll just call it technical accuracy. We wouldn't be, making changes of the spirit of it or direction of what we've done tonight. Okay. Thanks. Okay. If we are done with item number 2, we can move on to item number 3. Review, discussion, and potential action on the 2025 Bureau of Aeronautics petition project list and associated draft public hearing notice. So here we are with the city of Middleton submitted a petition request to the Bureau of Aeronautics, last March. And now the Airport Commission and Common Council, will typically submit a petition request to the BOA on an annual basis to include, our next round of projects that, we'd like to be eligible for state or federal funding. And in your packet tonight is a list based on our previous discussion of November 7th. Scrolling down to the list, my commissioners, taking a look at that, first and foremost, is there anything that you think is missing. Now is the time to make sure it's in there. I have a question for Rich on an item that may or not be missing because I don't know. Rich, what about like the fence in general? Like the whole fence? How do we fix it? What do we do if it needs repair? Um, how do we make sure we're proactive on that thing?
Yeah, the fence is in pretty good shape. We have had a drunk driver, I believe, run through it and damage it to a certain extent. We simply had a fencing company come out and repair it. And I don't believe that was just normal operations for the airport, which at one point we were getting some special federal funding to help with our operations during the COVID situation. I don't know if we still have any of those funds available. Let's see. The gates, I did mention that they were getting very old, and it would be worthwhile, I believe, replacing all of our gates with something new.
Yep, I've got replacement of automobile ramp access gates on the list.
Right. So that's already there. Now, if the airport, if you want the entire airport fenced, there may well be some funding available to do that. It's been a low priority simply because the fencing we have can easily be defeated if people wish to do so. I think the chief of police said you'd have to have 8 foot with razor wire to keep anyone serious out. And I don't think that we want that. There's no real reason to have that here. So
Okay.
those are options. There's nothing wrong with fencing the entire airport, I suppose, to keep people from wandering in from the north, but it hasn't been an issue in the past.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, maybe just a thought. Again, with this petition process, just because you put an item on the petition list and it goes through the process of BOA does not mean you need to act on it with any certain time. So there is, a benefit to maybe putting a project on the list like the fence, full perimeter fence on there, with the understanding that it may be 5 years and maybe 10 years down the road, before we act on that project. But if it's on the list, then if it meets their eligibility criteria, then it could be, funded through state or federal funds. So I guess my suggestion would be put that on the list now, and if we ever need to do it, then that's an option for us to explore in the future.
Okay.
And of course, Brian is completely correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't know. I certainly don't want to put things on there for the sake of putting things on there. I don't want to spend the BOA and FAA's money on things that we don't need, but we don't know what we would need 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or whatever.
And just as a note, we have had deer in the vicinity periodically as well, and perhaps help keep them out.
Yes, those large, oversized rabbits are everywhere. Is there any merit to, I don't know, do you prioritize this list?
No, for the purposes of the BOA, I don't think that's not part of their process. So I think it's just a listing of things that we want to be considered as eligible projects. And then if presumably, this list passes muster with the BOA and is approved, then at that point, at future iterations, once funding is available, then we sit down with the BOA staff to decide, we're going to focus on these 3 projects this year, and here's the funding breakdown. So there is no kind of ranking of priority that's required. At least that's
okay. I see. Brian Hamilton, your hand is up, and you're muted.
Second button. Sorry about that. So I wasn't quite sure how far out in the future that we would be looking at, but something that kind of aligns with the Middleton's sustainability initiative, and we had talked about it in the past. I don't foresee it for at least 5 years, but an electric charging station. Is that out of the realm of possibility of at least tossing it on the list? Something, for electric aircraft. I don't think that's going to be I think that's going to be a rare thing, at least in the short term. But, you know, is that far enough down the line that that's something that could be put on at a later date, or is that something that you think we could put on now?
Yeah, I think I've got that on there now, and I have a question into the BOA to have them to verify the language. But the first item on the list, which is upgrades and equipment related to electrification and or decarbonization of the Middleton Municipal Airport, that's kind of the intent there to as a coverall for all sort of new technologies that might become available, kind of in the EV field, not just for vehicles that might be want to be charged, in the parking lot, but also, as you mentioned, as aviation technology advances and the EV planes become more of an item, that's kind of anticipating that, so that would be eligible for funding. So if the BOA comes back and says we need to slightly modify that language to clarify that, we'll absolutely do that before we get to a formal public hearing. But the intent with that first item was to kind of be a catch-all for that type of technology improvement over time.
Thank you. We've got any other hands up here? Brian, question then. This petition that's in front of us, this is just, this as worded or laid out, this is not what would go to the BOA. This is what we present to the public and to the Common Council so we can get feedback. So just a little kind of wordsmithing or something on my part. The paragraph in the middle, none of the projects listed above would expand, the footprint, emphasis added. If we just move it to the top and simply state in a much more concise way that none of the projects listed will not expand the footprint of the airport, period. I think we've made our message clear. Because there's nothing in here about runway reconfiguration. There's nothing here about adding I don't know, really runway to the airport. This is all just work to be done inside the perimeter of the airport. Call it maintenance. So maybe we just state that right away out of the box in our public statement. Hey, this is where we are. This is why we're doing it. And then just take that out of the middle. And maybe you could even put at the top also, I think you have in here, right, where did I see the word I need? Oh, that not all these things are necessary. I just want to, if you want to just put the stuff up front for the public. So if someone looks at it, they go, oh, we're not expanding the airport. We're working within our footprint. These things, by the way, are all things we're asking the BOA and FAA for. Thank you very much. That was it. That's all I had. Anybody have some thoughts? Agree, disagree with what I'm asking for? Brian, do you need a motion for us on any of this?
That would be helpful to provide a motion to move forward with this. We'll make the changes to the public hearing notice.
Okay.
Hear back from the BOA that they're comfortable with it, and then work with our plan commission to schedule the formal public hearing. And then after that, there'll be some specific paperwork that needs to be put together for the actual petition request after the public hearing. And that whole package, plus any public comment received from the public hearing, goes to the Common Council. They review it and decide whether or not to approve the petition. And if it is approved, then it gets submitted formally to the BOA.
Okay, great. So then, Commissioners, the motion I'll make that is before you is to instruct the city to move ahead with the agenda item number 3, potential action items for the Bureau of Aeronautics 2025 petition project list. Items associated with the draft is listed here in this packet, plus the additions mentioned here by this commission. to move this forward to the City and Common Council for a public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Nye seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Any opposed? Okay. Well, great. Brian, I guess we have some finances to review.
Yep, so I've got just the end of November report in the packet. Again, nothing out of the ordinary with expenses or revenue coming in. We'll be getting kind of the final closeout of December here in the next couple of weeks. So when I get that, perhaps for our next meeting, I'll have December and the year end closed. So we'll provide that information as soon as we have it. But no issues were relayed to me from our finance committee about the monthly report from November.
Okay. I suspect I think the airport commission, airport financials have to be the most uneventful piece of work for the city finance director, hopefully. Great, fantastic. All right, well, we don't need a motion on that. This is just for review.
Yeah,
So,
just be review and acceptance, so.
okay, Commission, I would like, I'll make a motion that we accept the finances as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Randall. All those in favor of accepting the finances as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Looks like this brings us to the end of our agenda. Do we have any future agenda items that from the commission that you would like Brian to add for future discussion? If not, again, feel free to send Brian or myself an email directly and for a future meeting. I guess everybody, with all of that, I appreciate your time. Thank you again. Thank you for your service over the past year. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you, Rich, for your ongoing hard work and support. Congratulations on your milestone of the Wright Brothers Award and entering 100 years of aviation training and education in this area. And with that, we will stand adjourned.